Let's all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have need to amend our agenda, so I need a motion to replace item C1, the finance report, with a new one, and replace attachment for item D2, the personnel report, and add a closed meeting to discuss personnel matter and student matter following the work session. Is there a motion to amend the agenda? In a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you. We move on to public comments, and we have no public comments this evening. So we move now to special presentation. Dr. Massey, Men to School.
Thank you. We want to recognize individuals who volunteered their time to greet students on the first day of school, and they plan to do it on the first day of school after winter break. This initiative is known as the Men to School, and it provides positive male role models who offered words of encouragement and support to students as they entered our school on the first day after they'd been away for summer break. We really appreciated the great work these gentlemen did. I heard nothing but rave reviews from principals, staff, and students as to how well this was received, and it really meant a lot to our students. So at this time, I'd like to ask James Coleman, Sterling Wilder, and Jonathan Willis to stand and accept our applause and thanks for a great job.
You know, it's really great to see the community engagement as well as the initiative on the part of the public. So thank you all. And it's obviously growing. So thank you again. Move to item, next item, special presentation on student achievement. Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, Perrymont Elementary School and Thomas C. Miller Elementary School for Innovation have experienced significant growth in student achievement. I've asked principals from each of those schools to come this evening to share their objectives and strategies that they use to help their students achieve this remarkable success. And we'll call upon Principal Karen Nelson from Perrymont Elementary School to come at this time and accept our congratulations, and for us to hear what objectives and strategies she used to make this great accomplishment. So, welcome.
Good evening. I'm very glad to be here tonight. I'm going to apologize up front. I'm a little under the weather, so I brought some water just in case. But it's such a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you to talk about some of the practices that were put into place at Perrymont Elementary School that we believe resulted in increases in student achievement over the course of the last 3 years. This is our journey, and you can see it started with the results from the 2014 spring SOL tests when we were named a priority school, which of course meant that we fell in the bottom 5% in the state. At that point, we were charged with double-digit increases the following year, or I would be replaced as principal. And you can see with the exception of science during that 14-15 year, we had steady increases in all academic subjects through the priority years. We did some things. I wish I could tell you that there was a program we purchased or something magical that we did, but really it was a combination of things that people committed to that made such a huge difference for us in the area of reading instruction. We had been working on small group guided reading for some time, but we followed and revised our master schedule so that it reflected the LCS framework for instructional time. And what that did for language arts was it reduced the amount of time in whole group instruction and increased the amount of time spent in small group instruction. All instructional assistants were assigned to grades 3, 4, and 5 to support small group instruction. And in grade 5, we departmentalized for the first time in a number of years, meaning that one teacher taught language arts, one science and social studies, and one for math, while teachers in grades 3 and 4 continued to teach all subjects. As part of the daily diet for students in the area of reading instruction, we incorporated a daily language arts review. And what this meant is that previously taught skills were constantly at the forefront for our students, and they were given opportunities to practice those skills on a daily basis. This was data-driven, and teachers would do an item analysis of the daily language arts review to determine what areas were needed for reteaching, what areas could be added to a station for additional practice, which items needed to be included on the following week's language arts review. We continued our implementation of Daily 5, which is the structure or framework that builds in 5 components every day for students in the area of reading. I will say the one that we were able to commit to the most was Read to Self, and we worked on focused on building stamina, so that our idea was that students would, when faced with those long passages on an SOL test, they would have the stamina to be able to read those passages with a higher degree of success if they had been given many opportunities at sustained silent reading in class. And teachers have already started building those goals with students this year and charting and graphing their progress so students can see. Sometimes they start out at maybe only 10 minutes of sustained silent reading at the beginning of the year and work their way up to about 40 minutes. We incorporated Google Classroom to support additional TEI practice for students. Teachers could take the PowerPoints and assign them to each child. So rather than calling the children up to the smartboard one at a time to answer questions, they were allowed to get that additional practice on all of the TEI items. We also used the VDOE 2014 Student Performance Analysis Reports. And you might wonder, well, why 2014? That's actually the most current version of that report that the VDOE has available. And that report is used to identify difficult content reading by SOL, and then it provides a review of the most common student errors. So teachers are able to use that document to inform their own teaching and to anticipate what some of the confusions or misconceptions might be for students as they introduce content in the area of reading. We worked very closely, of course, with our AIR coaches. We are so fortunate that our lead turnaround partner has really become a part of the Perrymont staff and is fully invested in our progress and that of our students. And they focused on 5 specific reading strategies. And I will tell you that the teacher in 3rd grade that implemented these 5 strategies with fidelity had a 94% pass rate on the reading SOL test in a heterogeneously grouped class of students. Only one student in that class failed the reading SOL. It includes students creating an I own it word list based on their reading miscues, and of course rereading to correct miscues and being prompted, encouraged to do that. They used summarizing strategies such as somebody wanted but so. They used small notes on the side, lovingly called snots. We say we have snots everywhere in the building, to identify things in the text that surprise them. And by focusing on that which surprises them, it helps them avoid writing lots and lots of small notes on the side. Students identified words that the authors assumed they knew, and then the focus was on helping those students learn to define those words in context. Gone were the days of looking up the word in a glossary or a dictionary and writing the definition. The focus was on really helping them learn how to use those clues that the author provides to define that word. Professional learning communities were a primary focus at Perrymont, and they met 2 times per week, 1 PLC meeting per week focused on reading and the use of student achievement data to plan instruction following the TLC-PLC cycle provided by the school division. Math followed a pretty similar format for us again. Now, I will say that small group guided math was a new venture for us in a lot of ways. We redesigned the master schedule to follow the framework for instructional time, and again, it reduced the amount of time that was spent in whole group and focused really on small group guided math. We incorporated a 5-block spiral review, and this was actually an outgrowth of some of the work done by Tammy Headings at Payne a few years ago that she had shared division-wide. And this too is data-driven, meaning that students every day work on previously taught skills. Teachers engage in item analysis of the spiral review to determine what needs to be retaught, what can be put in a station, what they need for additional practice, and what should be included again on the following week's spiral review. IXL is a web-based math program that we use for stations to target deficit skills. And one of the things we really like about it is once a teacher has a license, they can assign skills at a lower level or a higher level, meaning if I'm a third grader and I need to go back to second grade skills on a particular area, I can do that. At the same time, if I'm a student who needs acceleration, we can assign that same SOL at an upper grade level. Just as in reading, we use Google Classroom to support additional TEI practice, and once again, that student performance analysis report was used to identify difficult content in math by SOL and to review those common student errors. PLCs, as I said, 2 days a week, 1 for reading, 1 for math, following the TLC-PLC cycle provided by the school division. Grade 5, Science and Social Studies, again, we departmentalized in grade 5, as I said earlier, and we also increased the daily Science and Social Studies time during second semester to 40 minutes per subject per day. Lole Cole, I'm sure you've heard a lot about Lole Cole. I would say that we embrace this as a way to provide feedback to our teachers on a regular basis. We completed 226 observations during the 2016-17 school year, and the breakdown there by subject is available for you. The key part about Lole Cole is that it gave us a specific area to focus on during observations, because you're really looking at the alignment to the standard. Is the teacher's objective aligned to that standard? Are the students going to be assessed in a way that's aligned to the standard? And of course, are the learning activities aligned to that standard? For us, it meant that we had at the end of a month a lot of data that we could use to analyze and see where the issues might be. Maybe where teachers needed additional support either through the coaches or through school-wide professional development. And so we would analyze and calculate percentages on each one of those Lole Cole components every month and then use that to plan that professional development for teachers. Retake remediation. Now, we want to get to the point where we don't have 63 students qualifying for an SOL retake. We want them to pass the first time around. But it is a wonderful opportunity for them and for us. We're very proud of the fact that 45 out of 63 students passed on the retake for a retake pass rate of 71%. When we met with the Bev Rabel from the Office of School Improvement this summer, she indicated that the pass rate at the state is about 50%. So how do we do it? Because it is obviously for us a very important part of why our scores increased like they did. Test results are reviewed immediately and retake students are identified. I mean the day of the test. Copies of the student detail by question reports are printed for each student who qualifies for a retake, and those reports are analyzed to identify SOLs and areas for remediation focus. We identify the teacher who's going to serve as the retake remediation teacher. That block is planned, and then the remediation plan is implemented. And that means that the retake remediation teacher works with those identified students for an hour to an hour and a half a day. And we take the rest of the students who would have been in that teacher's class and divide them up among the remaining teachers. So the retake remediation teacher isn't trying to focus on the retake group and the rest of the students during that hour to an hour and a half. She's focused solely on the retake students. Student progress monitoring protocols were established. A spreadsheet was created for the purpose of student progress monitoring. Students were placed in tiers based on the data we had available to us, and then interventions were assigned. Teachers analyzed student progress during PLCs. That was an ongoing basis, and our grade level school improvement team representatives were responsible for sharing data on the effectiveness of the interventions based on their team's analysis of student progress. And really, that's how we did it. And I will say, with a lot of support, we were very fortunate that through this journey, we had wonderful support and help from central office. Dr. McLean and Mr. Rudder helped guide us through all of the priority requirements, of which there were many. I will say, they've probably seen me cry more than anybody on the planet. Would you say that's true, Dr. McLean? A little bit. But honestly, such a positive force in our lives in helping us navigate that process. Marie G., I can't say enough about her efforts to make sure that we were fully staffed and that we had access to some of the best applicants who were out there. And Ben Copeland, you might wonder, what would Mr. Copeland have to do with school improvement because of his focus on operations and facilities? Just such a great supporter of ours, always encouraging, invited me to serve on the principals, on a panel for aspiring administrators, which said to me that he valued my work as an administrator and knew that I had something to bring to the table and share with those folks who were just beginning their journey. And I just can't say enough about the support and the positive energy that was sent our way during this process. And Dr. Massey, you don't even realize it, but you played a role as well, because when you were here several years ago, you invited me to speak before this group. And at that time, Perrymont was accustomed, honestly, to negative publicity. And for the first time in a very long time, we were given the opportunity to showcase all of the good things that we were doing. And there was an article that appeared in the News in Advance at that time. And you can see it's kind of yellow because it has been on my refrigerator since that year and served to inspire me when things got tough, because you were one of the first people to recognize and publicly state that we were doing things and we were doing them well. So thank you for reaching out through the years in a way that you couldn't have imagined. And I have to say, the students, they keep inspiring us and challenging us, and we keep coming back for more. I've got some folks here with me tonight. I want them to stand up so you can see some of the staff members who've worked so hard. Yeah. Because it has been an amazing team effort, and I am fortunate too that I have someone who lives in my household, my husband, who's here tonight, who cooks and cleans and all those things so that I can focus on my schoolwork. So I open up for questions.
Board member questions? Ms. Carter, comments?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You
Thank
can
you
see
very
the hard
much.
work. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
And the PLCs, they're wonderful collaborative teamwork just to get things done. And we can see from this that it works.
It does. And we invite you. You can come on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, just about any time, and visit a grade level PLC. They would love to have you.
Dr. Sena?
Well, in some circles, I'm on a school board, but in other circles, I'm a data scientist. And from that perspective, I'm really impressed with all the information gathering you do, and clearly you found it helpful. Doesn't matter if you collect it and keep it and do all kinds of things. If it's not helpful, it sounds like just about everything you did proved to be helpful in making positive changes, and that you had a lot of support from your people to do that. That's really great. I'm curious to know, and maybe it's too much to talk about right now, but how you collected that. Is it kept somewhere? You talked about some spreadsheets.
Yeah, we create our own spreadsheets so that we can pull it all together in one place, and honestly, the teachers are responsible for entering that for their students. And then we can obviously manipulate that spreadsheet in different ways to determine who our intervention students are, and then assign those interventions and track the progress of student by intervention.
It's very impressive.
Thank you.
And I know it's really hard to get good data and keep track of it. It takes a lot of work, and so I commend you on doing all that.
Thank
putting
you.
in the extra mile to do that, and then as a result make some what seem like some great decisions. And to
Well,
your success.
And I think part of it too is when you go through this process, I mean, everybody, when you go to the meetings in Richmond, everyone's trying to find that thing that will make a difference. And it's so easy to spread yourselves too thin. And honestly, I think that happened to us at one point. You're trying a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And we realized that year, the year that we were charged with double-digit increases or I'd be replaced as principal, we really started to focus in on specific things that made a difference for us and just decided we're going to get better at these things rather than trying to take on too much. And that, I think, made a tremendous difference for us. And even putting this together, I thought it seemed so simple, but it's the idea of doing those things, doing them well, and then taking the time to get better each year. I would expect to see changes this year and improvements in all of those areas as we continue to refine what we're doing.
Ms. Morrison?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you to you and your staff for doing what you did and for sticking with us to get it done. I also want to thank you for taking the safety of your students so seriously. We reviewed the Safe Schools Crisis Intervention Plans this week, and yours was very thorough.
Thank you.
And it makes me feel good to know that our kids are taken care of if anything should happen.
Well, and I tell you, Officer Turner's keeping us on our toes because she's doing unannounced lockdown drills. And see, they're laughing back here because we had one today.
But thank you, because that takes a lot of work, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
You're welcome.
Dr. Coleman?
Mrs. Nelson, thank you, as has already been echoed. And one of the things that I do want to state that is somewhat off but on the point, that you mentioned your husband, Councilman Nelson, present to so many kids a marvelous example of what we are trying to teach in the academic setting. At the back to school program, it was not back to school program, the event that was out in Miller Park, getting ready to go back to school. It was just a joy to see your people working together and doing what is necessary to set the right tone. So thank you all very, very much. Dr. Massey, you obviously brought Ms. Nelson down here so that she could tell us what they were able to do well. And Mr. Chair, I'm just interested. I pulled 3 sheets, grades 3 through 5 reading instruction, the low-lay, co-lay sheet, and the retake remediation. That are at least some things that I'm interested in. Where do we go from here in terms of what is being presented today?
All right, I think one important thing we need to do is to take what Mrs. Nelson and Mrs. Huskins have done and make it available to all our principals. And we're having a principals meeting next week, at which time I intend to set up a schedule where folks come and visit. And I'm making that offer to principals. They can come and bring their staffs and observe what's going on at Perrymont and what's going on at T.C. Miller. And we'll get substitutes for the staff that day. I think it'll be time well spent. We need to share these best practices.
And we were given an opportunity to share at the principals meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, thank you.
Share this information, and I've already had several principals reach out with questions about how we did this, that, or the other thing, and certainly they are welcome to come anytime.
And many of our principals are new, as you know, and I think that's going to be a big benefit to them. But Karen, you've done an absolutely outstanding job, and I think the most impressive thing to me is you created your own game plan, and you empowered and trusted your staff to help that. You guys got together as a team and really brought that school upward.
Well, I was asked when I was interviewed by the News in Advance what it was like when we were named a priority school, and I was trying to think of a word that could begin to describe how that felt for us, because obviously you work hard every day with the hope that you'll get the best results, and then to have it public that we were in the bottom 5%, we just wanted people to know that that's not who we are. And this group of folks and the folks back at Perrymont who couldn't be with us tonight rallied and said, we're not going to let this define who we are. And certainly it took every single person in that building, from the custodians and the food service staff, the instructional assistants, the office staff, all of the teachers to do work like this in the time that we've done it. And I had tremendous support on a personal level because, honestly, people cared about me and people didn't want to see me lose my job. But I am grateful. I'm grateful for the support that the board showed at that time because the decision could have been different. And I will always be grateful that I've had this opportunity to show people what I know about Perrymont and what I see every day. And that is a dedicated, caring group of people who are constantly learning. I think that's one thing that sets us apart because it's a little harder, honestly, and has been more difficult. We've had to change. We've had to learn. And so we're committed to that, and we continue to do it, and I'm sure we'll make more changes and continue to learn this year. Bev Rabel looked at me and from the Office of School Improvement and said, "You're a learner," and I said, "I have to be." And we will continue this school improvement journey. We want to continue to get better at what we do, whether we're a priority school or not, isn't what's going to dictate what we do. I promise you that we're still on the journey, and we hope to see those scores continue to improve.
My turn.
Oh, go please, go ahead.
No, I want to commend you also. I mean,
Thank you.
Ms. Nelson, it's clear that you and your team bought in. I wouldn't say buy in. You weren't selling, but you engaged and focused, and it took a lot of effort and commitment over several years. And it's really my takeaway from this is you found what works for you, and certainly that needs to be shared, I think, within the division. But I think also each school needs to be aware of that they have their own unique needs. And they're going to need this, like, yeah, this worked there, but they're going to need to put in the effort and make the commitment that your team did and find out what works for their schools. So,
Absolutely, and I think that's important for the division as a whole to realize is that, that when we start painting with that broad brush is when we're going to run into trouble.
Yep.
We've got to appreciate and recognize the uniqueness of each school. And I think through the last 3 years, we've been given some freedom to do that. Obviously, there were a lot of requirements, priority requirements, state requirements that we had to navigate, but we were given some flexibility and freedom to try to do some things differently that resulted in big gains for us and for our students.
Dr. Coleman?
Mr. Chair, it was very, very well said. I don't expect an answer on this now, but have you all looked into the 18 students with the retake that did not pass? Is there any way to glean from that anything as to
When you're
how close did they come, or what are some
Sure.
of the dynamics? Are there any cultural dynamics that need to be better understood around those 18 retakes
I really
that didn't
think
pass?
what the retake piece says is that anybody can do anything at any time. And for our students, for so many of them, it's a matter of confidence. Obviously, those 63 students had the ability to pass, or they wouldn't have scored in that 375 to 399 range to start with.
Right.
So it was a matter of teachers, yes, focusing on specific things, and sometimes it was something very small that made the difference for a student. And when you had that student by detail report, you were able to sit down and say, okay, they missed SOL, whatever. This is the type of mistakes students commonly make with this. How can I help this child unscramble whatever confusions they have? But they all have it to pass, or they wouldn't be in that range. It's a matter of a couple of questions when you score there. But I would say the thing that we've noticed is it's really a matter of building their confidence that you can do this. You really did well. You just need to focus on this or that, and then provide that extra remediation for a brief period. Every one of those students who failed just as easily could have passed on the retake.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bring it.
I'll ask Amy Huskin to come, talk about her objectives and strategies.
I feel like I've been here a lot. I promised you all last spring that when I saw you again, I would be bringing you good news. And I know you all have seen numbers, so I won't be bringing you a lot of numbers tonight, but it is good news I bring you tonight for T.C. Miller. I hope that I can share a few things. I feel like a lot of what I'll be sharing is very similar to Perrymont's story. I feel like as a school division, we've been in school improvement a very long time. So tonight, I'm going to share with you sort of the Reader's Digest version of from turned down to turned around. But I'm going to start with, you're going to hear a little bit more of the backstory of T.C. Miller's 4-year, our journey is a 4-year journey. And I'm going to start with 2 addresses that are really, really near and dear to me. 600 Mansfield Avenue, as you know, is the address for T.C. Miller. And 531 Eldon Street is about 3 blocks from T.C. Miller. And we lovingly refer to it as the Mayor's Mansion. And that is the house I grew up in. And that is in the T.C. Miller neighborhood. And my mom and dad bought that house in 1958. And they bought that house because T.C. Miller was a great school. And all 4 of us walked to T.C. Miller School every day with all the kids in the neighborhood. And that, the onus is on me to make sure that under my watch, T.C. Miller will forever be a great school. And it's important in that community, and it's important in the city of Lynchburg that all of our schools are great schools. So, yes, that's the Mayor's Mansion. And every single community, every single neighborhood has Mayor's Mansions that look just like that. So all of our schools need to have that reputation, just like T.C. Miller. So just so that you understand where my passion comes from, that is my home, but 600 Mansfield Avenue is also my home. So that's sort of where we're going to sort of start from this evening. But you know, and just so, you know, I joked with Dr. Massey before that, yes, sir, you are the boss and I answer to you, but I answer to the mayor at 531 Eldon Street. My father's passed away, but I answer to the mayor. And she still is we could say she's the oldest living member of the T.C. Miller PTA. She's been a member since 1958, and you know, we honor her quite as often as we can. But anyway. So here's the T.C. Miller team. Many of them, you know, couldn't join me tonight, but there they stand. And that banner, I probably was premature in putting that up, but they needed to walk under that banner on the very first work day because they needed to see T.C. Miller Elementary, a fully accredited school. They needed to walk under that banner. They needed to feel that feeling because they earned it. And they have walked this journey, and they have earned every letter on that banner, along with the students, of course. But, and if you look closely, you can see the words on the back of their shirt, and that's where I'm going to take you. I'm going to take you through every phrase, every word on the back of how that has come to pass over the last 4 years, because we had to start at the very beginning. Because the process begins with establishing a culture for school improvement. Because if you're not ready to wrap your brain around the whole idea, we couldn't start with just throwing out instructional strategies. We couldn't just start with, oh gosh, we're broken and we got to try this and change that and do this and do that. Because we used to be chasing the AYP game. We used to chase all the federal standards. And we never worried about state accreditation. We were always state accredited. And we were always working on the other side. And then all of a sudden the bottom dropped out and we were no longer state accredited anymore. And we dropped from, 80s and 90s and everybody's good to the 40s and 50s. And so, we didn't just need a little overhaul. We needed a little adjustment. We needed a complete overhaul. So we had to redefine what that was going to look like and what a success looked like. So we had to completely start over. So that was back in 2014. So we started with, what's our vision? And so we came together and we decided, what's it going to look like when we get there? So we came together and we decided that our vision is T.C. Miller Elementary School, a place where every child can learn, lead, and soar. And we wrapped our brains around that. And that's where we started on this path. And then after great discussion, we decided we didn't need a separate mission, because if we did our part, once a child left us and they felt success and they learned how to learn and they learned how to love learning and they learned how to do all the things we needed them to do, then we had done our part and we could send them on to secondary school. So we are part of the larger mission, Every Child by Name and by Need. And these are our beliefs. This is version 2.0. We revisited them this summer. And as a team, we wrapped our brains around what is it that we believe. And each one of these came with great discussion. Each one of these statements, as a team, we came together. What is it that we know to be true? What does this place stand on? What will we hold each other accountable to be and do and stand firm on as a team? And so each one of these, and you can read these, but they're very different than the first set. The first set we did were very future focused. They were very visionary. These are in the present tense. These are right now. These are here and now. Click to the next one. One I will point out, TC Miller staff maintains a respectful and supportive culture for all to ensure learning. That one in and of itself has a set of norms that goes with it about how we will interact with each other, about how we will always expect the best from each other, about how we will hold each other accountable, about how we will always assume the best when, like, if someone has to cancel a class, a resource class, or someone has to, how we will not back alley talk about how conversations will be handled between the adults. So each, there are norms and there are certain things that go with each one. This activity in and of itself was better than any team building, better than any game, better than anything we could do to unify us as a group. So all of these things come together to build that culture for school improvement. And where does all this happen? It's like, gosh, how do you have time for all this? You got to teach. Where does all this happen? Our turnaround conference has been critical. Every summer for 2 days before any other work days, before anything else happens, I pull my team together for 2 days in the summer. It's just us, but it's every staff member, every instructional assistant. Anytime we're onboarding anybody new, we are incredibly intentional about how we onboard people, because you just can't expect that they will understand how we do business. So we get very clear about our goals. We get very clear about how we are going to, this is TC Miller, this is the expectation, this is what we're going to do. And we do the work with just our team. So, it's however, it's Title I money, it's however it needs to happen. But it is, and now it's going to be, from now on, it will be called the Turned Around Conference. But it's every summer, and the team has now decided that it's in our sustainability plan, and it's critical. It is not going away. So, but the next piece, okay, so we know everything is a mess, and we know we've got to get it fixed, and we know where we're grounded, and we have a vision, we have a mission, we have beliefs, we have all of that in line. But oh my goodness, we're a mess in every academic area. Where do we begin? So we decided to start with math, because we decided, okay, we're going to unpack the standards. We're going to get really clear about that. We're going to begin with backwards design. We're going to create common language as we go through the grade levels. Vertical articulation meetings. We set aside every single quarter, every grade level meets with the grade level below and the grade level above, and they communicate. Because when children matriculate through the grade levels, if your teacher called it one thing and your next teacher calls it something else, they feel like they've got to learn all new information every single time. So we have clarity between all of our grade levels about who calls, we call everything the same thing. And it's all built into the schedule. We do a lot of peer observations. We got really comfortable about having critical conversations between grade levels. Again, just like Karen was talking about, PLC work, about creating formative assessments, spiral review, guided math groups, a lot of the same instructional practices. The biggest thing for us, though, was unpacking the standards. When we first started this journey, we were good at the overarching standards. We thought we were teaching the SOLs, but it was not until we got down in the weeds that we really got a common understanding. And the other thing, is that just really understanding who's doing what at which grade level, and really understanding, about assessments, and really understanding the math. And we were on a 2-year journey first in math, and we got accredited in math first. We got there. And then we showed tremendous growth. You know, for example, this past year, only one fourth grade student did not pass the math test. I mean, 98% pass rate. You can't argue with that. So we're pretty proud of that. And, you know, we're at an 84% overall in math. And for a school our size, that really only means just a few children in each grade level didn't pass. So we've eaten the math bear. So we're hoping to maintain that. So we'll keep going. And then we knew, okay, it's time to eat the reading bear. So very similar. A lot of similar strategies as Perrymont. Again, unpacking those standards, getting really clear about what are we going to take away today. What will a child learn, and really narrow that focus for today. Really intentionality with literature. We want our children reading literature every single day, not doing activities about reading. We want them reading. And again, about building stamina, building endurance. That message is very clear at our school too. One thing that's moved the needle for us is a program called Epic Books. I spoke to you all last spring about that. Epic Books is free. You know, we don't do a lot of technology. Again, just like Karen was saying, we keep it really simple. We don't throw a lot of technology. We didn't go for a lot of things changing. We keep it very simple. But Epic Books, again, is free, but it's a free library. It's literature. Kids are reading and reading real books all the time. But then, again, kids are reading, then they're taking AR. And we had over 130 kids or so at our AR banquet at the end of the year last year. And our reading specialist did a correlation. If a kid has over 50 AR points, the likelihood of them passing the SOL test, you know, it's informal research, but, you know, look pretty good. Again, and for us, we're at an 87% pass rate in reading. That's tremendous. Again, for a school our size, that means very few children did not pass the test. So that's good. Another one for us is an old program, Study Island. But we are not putting children on computers and just setting them loose and saying, here, go, or even putting them in a center. The teachers are using the actual passages from it and aligning it and teaching the children. This is what you will do. And they try to show them every possible scenario. They're teaching it in those small groups. They're not just saying, oh, here's a program, here's a technology program, go use it. They are using it as part of sound instruction. There's no replacement for sound instruction. They're taught explicitly how to recognize every possible scenario. So we had no child that sat down in front of a computer and just clicked. We had no child just get frustrated and put their head down, which is what we had seen in years before. So those are things that we had recognized and said, okay, how are we going to fix this? Build endurance, get them reading on grade level, and then fill in the holes of what makes them frustrated. Take that out of the equation. So that was that. Again, we focused on that progression chart from the VDOE. Who introduces the skill, who teaches the skill, what's essential to understand the depth of the skill. And we brought in someone from Virginia Beach who is a principal at an all-gifted school, and she really taught and focused with us at our turnaround conference last summer about everybody teaching to the rigor of the standard and then spiraling back for the one or two that needs it, because we were seeing that a teacher would we could see the same lesson in second grade that we could see in fourth grade, and it was the same level of rigor. And so really by getting clarity on that, people understood, like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, the whole class doesn't need me to start here. It's like, we're going to start here and maybe drop back for one or two. So it just almost gave teachers permission to teach to the rigor. So yeah, that's just a copy of that chart. You can keep going. And that's just a copy of it. That's in the current pacing guide. So now everybody in the school division has access to that in their pacing guides. And again, it's about understanding. So then we needed to get real clarity, and we need to get down in the details. Okay, so how are we going to make this all work? And, someone once said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you don't really understand it yourself. So we had to get real clarity on what it is that we're doing, how we're going to manage it, and what real detail pieces are going to make all of this really work. We needed to know every single student, how they were performing, how it was going to work, what each student needed, and how they were going to be successful. And I know I shared this with you all last spring, is our stoplight data system. And that was critical to our success. Again, every student, every 2 weeks, we were talking about them. How are they doing it? By skill, by need, every single skill, every single subject, we were looking at them. So we knew before the children ever sat down for their test, who's going to do what in every single subject area. We made predictions, and we predicted low. Our kids outdid us. They outdid themselves. And the other thing is, we turn in our lesson plans. Our teachers turn in their lesson plans every single week, and they get, I give them feedback. The coach, our lead coaches give them feedback. And what that did for me as an instructional leader is it made me dig in really deep on the curriculum framework myself, because there were things I didn't know, things I didn't understand, and it forced me to dig in deeper. Yes, with Lole Cole when I'm going in, but not as much as when I'm sitting down on Sunday evening and I'm looking at lesson plans and I'm giving feedback for this, and I can say, you know what, let's go back to the DOE guideline. That really looks like what they're introducing in second grade. Should you really be doing that in third? And so just that constructive feedback, and they're shared between the grade levels. So when they go to their vertical articulation meetings, again, everybody, it's all open, it's all transparent. Everybody's talking. So, but then comes the commitment phase. Dr. Massey always laughs. He laughs last time I said that. Commitment's like the third week on a diet. You're good, you're all excited. And then for us, commitment came, we got accredited in math, and we're making progress, and we're starting to see our numbers come up. We came from the 40s and the 50s, and we're in the 60s, and we can sort of see it. We've made it in a couple areas, and we're almost there. And last year we're at a 68 in reading, and we can see, we're reaching, we're reaching over the edge of the cliff. And then in October, I get that Friday night phone call. Oh yeah, Amy, God, I hate to tell you, but you're going to be denied accreditation. So commitment. That's where commitment comes in, because we knew we had a good, solid plan, and we had been working that plan for 3 straight years, and that team had stayed the course. Our team had stuck to it, and we had been seeing it. And then all of a sudden, to get the wind knocked out of your sails, denied accreditation. Public, everywhere, everybody knew it, and just it's the same thing as really, and then it's like the mayor's gonna be calling, well, Amy, what's that on the news? Why are you on the news? That's a great school you got over there. What? It's okay, Mama, we're still a good school. I got to answer to her. So somewhere between the tiers of all of that in that weekend, I've got to convince this team. We got this, okay? We got this. So here's what that commitment looks like. Here's what it looked like on that home stretch. We had to just get confident that the plan was solid, we were going to keep working, and we just were going to stay all in. We were going to stay dedicated to that PLC work, meetings every single week. My job, I'm going to keep facilitating, keep providing that support. What do you guys need? What can I get you? How else can I help you get these children there? What do the kids need? What does it look like? And my job is to lead that charge. And I would say this day in and day out, I'm going to keep the wolf at the door. I don't know what the wolf's going to look like today. I don't know what the wolf's going to look like tomorrow, but it's my job to keep the wolf at the door. And my team knows I have their back. Nothing was going to derail our plan. And that's just the truth. So the teachers on their end, they were teaching after school. They were teaching during lunch. They would keep the kids during resource time. They taught intersession. They taught Saturday. It didn't matter. We were going to get those kids up and over. And they did. So, people had to, truly, that's just the truth. It was so tense. It was so intense. Yes, there were arguments. There were tears. It was crazy. And we thought each other was crazy. And people on the outside absolutely thought we were crazy. Because we were. So, but success. At the end of the day, last May, it just looked like election every single day. Because when the numbers started coming in, and it just looked like pass. I mean, class after class, just incredible, just absolutely incredible, because those kids knew they could, and they left no doubt. They left nothing to chance. We didn't have a whole lot of retakes because they got it. They got it. We did have some, but boy, they got it. The ones that did, they got it. You know, there was not a whole lot left to chance. Again, and this is my favorite, but where are we now? This summer, we were all walking around going, okay, now what? We've been in school improvement so long, we don't even know, what do we do now? So we spent our Turned Around conference this summer defining, what does turned around look like? How do we sustain it? What do we keep doing? What do we stop doing? Where do we go next? The staff is very open, because we know that there's going to be, go back one, we know that there's going to be other folks that are denied. We don't want anybody, if we can save anybody from feeling like we felt last year, we can save anybody, any of that, come see. Because we feel like we have a system, sort of a system in place for reading, system in place for math. It's not hung on the backs of certain people. We sort of feel like, you know, we can help some folks. We want them to come see. Doors are open. But at the end of the day, the culture for school improvement is what drove us. It's being open, knowing that we had to fix it, and that you got to get out front. That as the principal, there was just no other way. That you just got to be there, and you just got to do it. So anyway, and the last one is you got to laugh every single day. Because we don't hide the crazy. It's there. We just give everybody a little sweet tea and roll on. So that's just. So. Since 1976? No. Principal, 2009. I came in December of 2009.
And Karen, how long have you been at Perrymont? I know you started really young.
I started at Perrymont in 1989.
Yeah, I was a teacher at T.C. Miller before that, 2001.
Since 2006.
I asked that question because you guys can see the passion they have for those individual schools. They love those schools, they love those children, and the passion just shows through. It's remarkable.
Very good, thank you. Board member questions or comments? Dr. Brennan?
One comment and a question. First of all, it's so clear both from your presentation and Mrs. Nelson's that so much of this is the leadership that comes from above. Your teachers obviously do a great job, but congratulations on what you all have done to lead them to this. And the other comment is I love your slide on the beliefs that T.C. Miller teaches every student to be a lifelong learner. Those are just wonderful things for us all to remember. The question I have is you had one slide, and this is just out of ignorance about not knowing how this always work. But you have one slide that says the students were taught explicitly how to recognize every possible question in formats. There are no surprises. Is there a way that you can actually do SOL tests? You know, when you do other tests like SATs, people go and take them over and over again just to learn how to do the test. Are there ways to do that? Is that how you track that every 2-week period that you're measuring how the students are progressing?
I mean, of course, they could throw in something that even staff members never seen before. But I mean, just because of the using Study Island and using our interactive achievement, and we have SOL formatted resources available to us. So, I mean, we have in TEI, technology enhanced questions and released items, and I mean, there's resources available to us that we can prep the children, not teaching to the test, but prepping them, because I mean, we're talking about 8-year-old children that are, they need to not be surprised, but also we don't want to spend days and days and days teaching to the test. We want to teach to the rigor of the standard and teach them to think critically and all these other things, but also we don't want to have them sit down and see things before and in formats before that they've never had a chance to experience either. So.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up with that, because at one point, I think it was the first year I was on the board, I went back and started kind of drilling through the SOLs, which at the time, and it probably still is, it was on the VDOE website, were the previous ones. You know, they had increased the rigor, and so that the tests also, the questions were easier. And by the time I got to 5th grade math, I was actually appalled at what I thought was very legalistic kinds of questions, and which was the right answer. And you know, they were tricky. You know, for a kid in 5th grade, I felt like I was taking a SAT exam or something. I don't think the public in general appreciates what's involved with these standards, and I think you're, in some sense, you're being generous when you say they're rigorous. They're almost devious in some cases, and the fact that the state doesn't release the current exams either, I think, is suggestive. But so, thank you, Ms. Carter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I like what you said about consistencies, how being consistent with the way that you phrase your questions or present the information from teacher to teacher, because that does make a difference. Especially, I know Susan always talks about in math, how math is presented differently depending on who the teacher is. So that consistency helps. And also you and the principal Nelson talked about confidence. Because when we keep hearing this about your school is failing, the teachers and the students didn't pass, so what is that telling the children? So just, you know, helping them with the confidence that they could do it, it's great.
Others? Mr. Polly?
I just want to say congratulations, and I appreciate specifically your focus on the sustainability piece. Just coming in the cliche sports world, when you're down by a lot of points and you have to come back, it's a lot of energy that you use trying to come back. And sometimes once you tie the game up, you run out of gas. So to hear you talk about that sustainability piece and how you're going to look forward and how you've already taken time to dissect where you guys are, I sincerely appreciate that. And hopefully we'll be able to mimic that around the division, where we can provide the sustainability piece outside of the amazing feat of getting back to accreditability. So thank you so much for everything that you shared.
Dr. Sinner?
Well, echo what everybody else said. Wonderful job. Congratulations. I'm really happy for everybody there. I too was impressed by your focus on clarity of language. If you can get everybody on the same page language-wise, you can cut through a lot of crap, to be honest with you. And so you make your job so much easier because everybody understands what you're saying. It seems like a foolish investment at first, up front, but you realize its benefits as you get down the road and everybody gets what you're saying. So I'm really impressed with that. And what stood out to me is how you identify what are the frustrations that students are having. I think it was partly in the other presentation too. I'm a person who would have been one of your cases of what's frustrating her. We know she knows what it is, but I've never been the best test taker. Technology can scare me, you know, so I can relate to kids who would face that kind of barrier that really impacts their performance but isn't a measure of their actual knowledge and understanding. So kudos to you for that.
Sometimes it came down to location in the building of where they wanted to take the test. I had kids take the test in my office at my desk because that made them feel empowered. Fine. You want to be with me? Be with me. Every kid had their own adult. And if that's who you bond with, fantastic. So we just work with that, you know.
Ms. Morrison?
And I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your school crisis intervention plan too.
Sure.
The language was very clear, and teachers and students would know what to do, and I greatly appreciate that. On top of all that you do, that's an important piece of the school culture too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Snyder?
Thank you to you and Ms. Nelson. I think the thing that I'm picking up from both of you is that everybody seems to be really getting the mission. Every child, by name and by need, you figured out what did that kid need, what did that kid need, what did that kid need. And I think when you can figure that out, all the pieces start to fall in. So thank you for doing that and taking that time. And, you know, I think you're amazing anyway. So.
Oh,
Love all your schools.
Dr. Sinna?
I meant to add, I was recently asked, what do you think Lynchburg schools really have going for them? Because often the news isn't so good, and I said, well, my impression is they really have this connection to their community, this long tradition, this pride of place. And, I said it and I felt it, but now I really feel like I've experienced it in your presentations, because that was a key too. You all have this cultural sense of your place, that history, that house from 1958 and so on. And I think that really is a wonderful asset that our schools have that may be underappreciated, but certainly you've shown how important that is to a successful school. That's great. Thank you.
Dr. Coleman?
Dr. Nellis, as we move forward from this point, I'm just trying to make sense. I had high anticipation for both of these reports, and I know it is taking a while to have heard both of them, but I have high anticipation. And both principals have gone beyond what I thought I personally, as a board member, would glean, and I want to thank both of you. Dr. Huskins, thank you for what you do. In your success piece, you talked about the staff is open to others in LCS visiting the classrooms, etc. Here's another piece for another discussion. This board, having heard both of your powerful presentations, obviously we're focused on the policy side. Our board member Morrison, I'm still every day reflecting on what you shared with me at the breakfast earlier this year about what you learned at your session. At this point, I'm just wanting to make sure that we as a board are addressing any policies that may be needed to make sure that we do not interfere with the superintendent, but are supportive to the superintendent in terms of making sure that our school division, it would appear to me many of the things that I've heard today, my personal opinion, everybody should be required to do if they're not doing it, and if not, there ought to be something put in place around that. Again, that's another discussion for another day. But thank you, Dr. Massey, for having these individuals to come, and I certainly hope that we as a board would educate ourselves and have the courage where necessary, because if, in fact, you all have done what you've done, I enjoy coming into the schools and observing. And I think I have proven that I don't try to do anything but just be there and look and learn and grow. I'm hopeful now that we as a board this year will begin to look where necessary at proper policies and or statements or whatever that will get us where we need to be across our schools. And Mr. Copeland, how many schools that you say we had again according to whatever rule you told me? Is it 18, 17, 16, how many? 18. Yeah, every last one of them, all 18 of them, need to be empowered with the proper policies that will afford each school to have the success that they need. And that's all I want to say in my rambling, and I'll be more specific as time moves along.
Good. All right, very good. Thank you very much, and congratulations again. Now we move on. Mr. Beckles, Finance Report.
Good evening. You have before you the financial report for the month of July. Been 1 month of the year, there's not a lot of transactions that is on in that report, but there are two things I would like to point out to you on that report. One is on the revenue side, and particularly the number for the supplementary lottery for student allocation. You'll see from last year, the amount was $268,000 compared to this year, $1,391,000. The difference for two reasons. One, last year, the state paid us $52.56 per student. For this fiscal year, they paid us $225.25 per student. So right there's a difference in the amount that was paid. So that's one reason why it's large. The second change they've made last year, 50% of that amount, that 268,000, 50% can go for reoccurring expenses, but the other 50% had to go for capital. They changed the requirements this year. So now you can use 100% of that money as you see fit. So there are no restrictions compared to what it was last year. So I just wanted to point out to you why there was a big difference. Basically, they changed the amount that they were paying us. The second thing I would like to point out for you, the revised revenue report, I'm going to stop giving you that. And the reason for that is not because it's a meaningless report until we get the revised revenue numbers from the state. That doesn't come out until December. So this report is basically going to stay the same between now and December. So I'm just going to stop providing it because it provides no meaningful information for you. Once December comes, then you will get that report back for the second half of the year. But for the first half, it's going to stay the same. It's just a meaningless piece of paper, I would say. So that would be two things. If you look on the expense side, you're not going to see any significant changes because, again, we only had 31 days of expenditure so far. I have a few other comments I'd like to make. If anyone has any questions on the statements, I'll take those now.
Any questions or comments from board members? At this point, Ms. Carter.
I have one question regarding the Medicaid reimbursement, and it seems like it's much more, it's decreased this year.
Okay, if you want to, if you remember last year, we got Medicaid reimbursement prior to June. Normally we get it afterwards. So yeah, the actual amount for last year was higher than you see the budget amount. Because we don't know where that number is going to go, we're conservative in our budget. We normally budget that around 300,000. Hopefully it goes higher. If I budget it high and it doesn't come in, I'm in the hole. So normally I would be conservative with the 300 number. But where would it fall this year? I have no idea. So we budget on the conservative side on that one.
Okay. If not, we had a couple other items.
Yeah, I want to clarify some comments I made on Laurel's report, my financial report last year. Apparently the way I presented it, it gave the impression that Laurel's operating budget was a negative. That's not correct. And so I apologize to Dr. Lewis and the staff for any grief that was caused by that. What I was trying to say was the amount that they budget for Laurel and the amount that we budget for Laurel, that was off. That number was a difference which we had to resolve on our side. One of the things that the last Laurel's board meeting we've asked them to do is move their budget timeline up to coincide more with our own so we could work on getting our numbers more in line. So that's what I was trying to communicate. Obviously I didn't, so I want to apologize for the misinformation that people might have taken from the way I presented that. The second thing I would want to bring to, I guess, the public's attention, as you know, for those that require eligibility application for free and reduced lunch, for the first 25 days of the following year, you ride on the application from the previous year. That application runs out on September the 25th. So now we're in the process of sending reminders to Easy Glass High School, Heritage High School, and Bedford Hills High School. So anybody that's eligible for the free and reduced lunch needs to complete their application before this September the 25th. Remember last year that was a trepidation for some people. We're trying to get ahead of it and just telling everybody else, if you do, get those applications in. We're doing our best to try and remind everybody and get that settled so we don't have an issue come the 26th of September. As far as the audit, the financial audit field work, the field work is completed. The audit is almost completed. What the auditors are waiting on now is they want to see the August medical claims bill before they finalize the audit, just to make sure, because in the number that we provided for, there is $150,000 we provided for, we accrued for to cover any bill that was for June and prior. We did have a high claim that met the stop loss in June, so what they want to see is if any expense that we paid in August relates to that stop loss. And if that's the case, it would reduce the amount that we provided for. So that's the one outstanding piece that's waiting the completion of the audit. At this point, we have no management letter issues. So at this point, we hope that stays the same. I don't think they're going to find anything at this point. Not because they didn't find it, it's not because it's not there. So I want to clarify that piece. Our fund balance, at this point, it's going to be around $450,000. So hopefully it'll stay that. I was hoping it'll be higher, but based on all things, we're still good that we even got $450,000 based on how things went last year. Other than that, the only things I need to bring to your attention as far as the financial report is concerned.
Okay, board member questions? Ms. Snyder?
I see our next board meeting is September 19th. Can you give us an updated where we stand with the free and reduced lunch applications at that point? Maybe remind the public again where we're at. All right.
Ms. Carter?
And if I may speak to that too, Ms. Snyder, at the next principals meeting, we're going to discuss that in great detail, just to put that out there. So just a preparation for that day will help.
Okay.
And we're going to be very vigilant in dealing with that.
Ms. Carter?
My question was, where do they get the application? Is it sent through email or is it sent home to each child?
Each child would have gotten one from the registration.
Already?
Mm-hmm.
They have to go get it or someone gives it to them?
No, they were given out at registration, but they can call, if they've lost it, they can just call any of the school nutrition officers and they can get one.
Okay. Dr. Coleman?
Yeah, yes, quick question. I don't know if it's to you, Mr. Beckles, or to the superintendent or the chair, but again, I continue to be interested in the ADM and how that is working with each school and across the division in the least way possible of work needed to do that. How can we get that information?
One of the things, there's a report that I'm going to begin to provide with you each month. I'll provide to the board when we give our financial report. But it's a meaningless number right now until we get the September count. Okay. And from September on, you'll get that report so you can see how the enrollment is moving month to month.
Excellent.
I guess a follow-up question on the notifications for the free reduced fee lunch application. Are there multiple notification channels? I mean, email, send stuff home with the kid. Are there phone calls anticipated?
We're doing every which way, including pigeons if we could, to communicate.
Well, okay.
We are doing every mode.
Okay, okay. Okay, because there's always seems it doesn't matter what you do.
What you do, somebody didn't get it.
Right, right. It's nice to be able to say that we have,
And the applications are on the website too if they need them.
Okay, okay. All right. No other questions? We will move on. Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. It consists of the school board meeting minutes for August 15th, our regular meeting, August 22nd, Student Discipline Committee meeting, revised personnel report, administrative regulation 7-63 fees, deposits, materials, reimbursements, and policy LBD home instruction. That's the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Brings us to student representative comments. Thank you for your patience. We'll start with EC Glass and Ms. Robertson.
So this morning, it was very sad in the building because, Mr. Quell passed, but the teachers in his honor wore blue and white ribbons with his initials on it, and Dr. Garrett also held a moment of silence for him during first period. The first 2 days of school, a club called the Ambassadors wore name tags to help the freshmen get around school, and we also had our freshman tailgate 2 weeks ago, and the freshmen seemed to have a good time. It was a lot of food and games there. And new students coming to Glass, they were given tours by returning students. We have a new program called Top Honors, where if a student is achieving highly in school and is a positive influence and like helping other students, a teacher will nominate the student and they will get a reward. And we also have a new course called Exploring Hip Hop, and it's where like people just get to learn about all kinds of music, and they made videos and it's on the Facebook page, and you can look at the Facebook page for sports events and theater events. And Dr. Garrett seems to be adapting well to EC Glass. He's always smiling in the morning and introducing himself to new students. Any questions?
Appreciate the report card on the new principal. Board member questions, comments?
The hip hop class, is that's an elective?
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
improvement.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Shaw, what's happening at Heritage?
A lot. In the beginning of the year, we had Day in the Park, as you guys know, where prepared students, parents, and teachers for a successful year. And I remember Dr. Massey, he was talking about how schools in the school system should be proud of each other. And so that like it represents that with Mr. Beatty and the principal at Glass interacting with each other. Men, as we recognize them, the men to school, they helped spread positivity. I know as a student that on my first day I was getting a lot of social anxiety. So by seeing these posters of positivity and motivational messages, it really makes an impact. So I really appreciate that. Heritage is starting a new program called #WeArePioneers. It stands for Welcoming, Encouraging, Achieving, Responsible, and Engaged. And it's used to really tackle all of the behavioral problems at our school to help us reach our accreditation goals, as it's a major obstacle. And of course, the hashtag is quite popular on social media for our students. So in career fields and academic progress, Heritage hosted its college application workshops to prepare seniors, and College Night is coming up soon. Gear Up, it's providing sophomores motivation to help graduate. So it's really just driving them to learn more and make it through high school. And as we've seen the eclipse, we just want to appreciate the Education Foundation and Department of Student Learning and Success. It really teaches across the curriculum, and I really appreciate that they're expanding our knowledge of science in various ways. And this could be a factor in the classroom in a way which, if you experience it, you learn it better. Last year, the art teacher at Heritage, John Rourke, he started the Memory Project, where his art students would paint faces of Syrian refugees and Tanzanian orphans, and then they would send it to them. And these are some stills from the videos we had, and they really appreciated it. One of the caretakers, he said, "We are happy to appreciate your generosity for taking much precious time to draw the portraits for children. It is touching, and the portraits will be a memory for all their life." Of course, Heritage alum Leland Melvin, he spoke about overcoming challenges and inspiring children at the elementary level to chase their dreams. He promoted his book, Chasing Space, which includes his journey to success. On the extracurricular front, the volleyball program, they're creating sort of a big sister, little sister program, and they're navigating younger girls to, in all aspects of high school, to build stronger relationships and just to be there for someone to rely on. Heritage Cross Country, you guys might have heard about this. It received a $14,500 grant by the Brooks Running Company, which is based in Seattle. And it really gave Heritage High's cross-country team a lot of new equipment and uniforms, which is well-deserved for them. For sports, on August 22nd, there was the Tight End Award ceremony, and it honored 5 senior football players on the varsity team: Kevin Moss Jr., Elijah Davis, Carrington Anderson, Eric Wyatt, and Javon Reed. Our faculty and staff, they're currently undergoing training for the annual Genworth 10-mile run on Memorial Avenue. It's great to see our faculty engaged in the community as well. And sports records, varsity remains undefeated, and their score is currently 4-0. And the volleyball team, I messed it up. Volleyball team is undefeated with a record of 4-0, and the varsity football team has a record of 2-0, both undefeated. And they take on Appomattox, which they are also undefeated, on Friday at 7. These are the upcoming plays for the Pioneer Theater. The first one is Noises Off, and it's coming soon. If you guys have the chance, you guys can come and watch it. And it's a really interesting fact. None of us really knew about this until last week, but Heritage High School is considered a Naval Honors School, the GROTC program. And within the last year, the GROTC program went from 48 out of 45 to the top 5 out of 45 in the region, which is really impressive. And for more updates on school activities and student achievements, you can follow the Facebook page. Also, there were some concerns and suggestions from the student body and staff about the AP policy. I think it's about how they're costing the $40 for each AP exam. There were some concerns from students who have siblings who also take AP classes that it might be too expensive for their families, which might require an income bracket for specific families. And some faculty mentioned that new policy might prevent students from taking AP classes, since many dual enrollment classes are free for the students. And some faculty said that there was some sort of communication gap, and if you guys could clarify that, then I could reel the message to them. But we really appreciate, I know in years past, LCS has cost the full price for AP exams, and it's around $90. And the reduced price to $40, we really appreciate that, since other localities have $95. It just comes down to whether students will be willing to take AP classes or not, since there are other classes that are free and available for access. And that is it for the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, Dr. Coleman.
Yeah, I took a picture of that last slide relative to the policy suggestion. Both of you all are really taking us to another level with input. I mean, it's powerful.
Very good. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Oh, sorry, Ms. Snyder.
I appreciate the shout out to the Facebook pages. I actually like both of them myself, so it's a good way, I hear more about Heritage because I'm zoned that, but it's good to keep an eye on Glass to know what they're doing and like the funny things that they post. So if you're on Facebook, I encourage you to do that.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to school board committee reports. Dr. Coleman.
Mr. Chair, I would not dare give the report from our very interesting equity task force, and you probably may not want to either, but I do want to acknowledge that we did have a meeting, and I know that Ethel is here. She probably doesn't want to comment on it either. I know Dr. Brennan was there, but that committee is at work, and there are a lot of dynamics around it. One matter of interest was our decision relative to the volunteer policy. So anyway, I'm just acknowledging that group met. It was a very good meeting. Dr. Massey was there. Dr. McLean was there. But I'm not on there discuss anything beyond that. I just want to acknowledge that the group met and that, to my knowledge, the superintendent is working on whatever he's working on, looking into stuff.
Any board meetings or anything? Ms. Carter?
The Lowell Regional School Board met, and our budget is good and solid, and it was. Also, just want to highlight one thing, that the wheelchair swings, they have recently added that to the playground, and the Lowell Regional School is the only school within a 50-mile radius that has such a swing. So it's awesome. And also, they had 3 graduates last year, or just recently, and their theme is Rise and Reach, because last year they had quite a few, 3 students that died and also a teacher, so their theme this year is Rise and Reach. And there was one thing else, and that's all. So they're doing well and meeting the needs of the students.
Thank you. Other comments? No? Okay, thank you. Brings us to unfinished business, hearing officers. This is for action tonight. Mr. Copeland?
Yes, sir. At the last board meeting, Ms. G provided information on how hearing officers are used and answered all questions that popped up at that time. I'll gladly answer any other questions, and it is for action this evening.
Okay, any questions or comments? I guess one question I have is there, do we need to do anything to say have a annual review of the willingness of these individuals to act as hearing officers? I mean, I'd hate to go for a few years and a couple of them move away and, it's gonna...
That is kind of the practice. Annually, you'll reconfirm that folks are still willing to serve, and if there are any updates, then the list would come back to you.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Again, Mr. Chair, we reserve the right to do it ourselves if we...
And provides us an option.
Sure.
So that's right. So this is for action tonight?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Been moved and seconded, and is there any additional discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Thank you. And we move to new business. Crisis plans for 2017-2018. Mr. Copeland?
So this comes to the school board every year. The calendar really was not our friend this year with the start of school and the way our school meetings fell. The requirement to certify that these have been updated with the state is August the 31st. Schools start working on them over the summer, and their deadline to get them to me was the 22nd of August. We turned them around and got them to you the following week so you could review them. I appreciate all the feedback. The Code of Virginia the Code of Virginia put things in place several years ago to ensure that the boards made sure that all your schools had plans and that the boards on an annual basis looked at those plans. Prior to that, you can guess how things may or may not have gone across the state. So this was the legislature's way to make sure that there were checks and balances and crisis management plans, and that everybody was taking a look at them to make sure we had the best steps in place should we need them. Our schools already this year have been conducting fire drills and lockdown drills, and will throughout the year conduct tornado drills and earthquake drills, and continue to do lockdown and fire drills throughout the school year. So they do take this very seriously. I appreciate the time that you've taken to look at these and the feedback you've provided, and I'll try to answer any questions. If you have the CDs with you, and I would like to get them tonight, if you left them at home, please make a mental note to provide them. These are considered sensitive information. We don't post these on websites. We don't provide them as part of information packets. We keep these copies close hold, and we will ultimately provide them to the first responders, the police department, the fire department, and the Lynchburg Emergency Operations Center. so that they have them should they ever need to be referred to in the future.
Say these are reviewed by local SRO, whatever. It's not like it's gonna hit the first responders cold.
They are. Our SROs actually work with our principals to take a look at these. As you heard Ms. Nelson mention today, Officer Turner is very active with her schools to make sure that they are taking a good look at this and moving things in a positive direction.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Ms. Snyder?
I thank all the schools for all the time, too, and Mr. Copeland and the city for helping. They always give me great anxiety reading them and all the different scenarios we have planned for, but then I am thankful that we have planned for all the different scenarios. So thank you, I guess. Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
And I appreciate they seem more consistent this year than the ones that I reviewed last year. I think the schools working toward the same format with the same information. It's not only helpful for procedure, but for the responders too. So if they're doing the same thing so I was really pleased to see that.
I appreciate that feedback. They are always a work in progress.
Right.
As things happen around the nation and the world, we may provide some updates and information throughout the school year so they can tweak their plans.
Ms. Carter?
I was going to say what Susan said, and some of them had like little red signs or highlights on the star 57. That's good, but they were really, I like the format. They were easier to follow this year, much easier.
Yeah, I'd second. That's been I've had some heartburn about the format, and it's good to see them moving more common, but it's also what matters is that the school administration and the first responders understand what's in it, and I also appreciate individual board members' efforts. It was obvious we engaged and provided feedback, so offer my thanks for that. So this is for action tonight. And so really what we're doing is saying we've received a copy and we agree with what's in there. And
yes, sir.
So if there's no other questions, is there, what's the board's pleasure?
I move that sorry.
No, you're good.
I move that the school board approve the crisis plans for 2017-18 school year.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Is there any additional discussion? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the crisis plans for 2017-18. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Crisis plans are approved. That brings us to introductory discussion of our school board retreat for 2017-18. Dr. Massey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Each year, the school board conducts an annual retreat, and we need to discuss the dates that the board would be available for that retreat. I would like to say that I have put on one topic, if you approve. I've asked Mr. Beckles to present the finance and budget to you in detail, which I think would be beneficial for the board. But if we could talk about the dates you might want and the topics that you might want.
Yeah, I'd just add that Mr. Beckles gives us details on the finance report, that he had a little sidebar, Finance 101, and use small words.
That's what I intended.
Okay, good, awesome. So we're really just kind of bringing this up for the board to start considering. First thing is, we typically do a day for the retreat, depending on the number of topics and the level of detail we want to go into. It potentially could be shorter. That's really up to what the board wants. There's not really, I guess generally speaking, we don't really make decisions per se. Is that fair to say? It's really sort of deep dives into particular topics and even potential policy issues. So it's really a day-long work session. So and it is about school matters. Typically, what we do would be to think about it, send Wendy suggested topics, then, the board leadership will kind of get together and see if there's areas of particular interest and work with the administration to set things up. And looking ahead on the calendar, I know my personal calendar, September is pretty much filled up. So I'm suggesting we maybe look at some dates in October, early October, late October. I don't know. It's kind of, Ms. Morrison.
We have a work day at September 22nd in Charlottesville.
And that's a board training
It's
session.
a board training,
And that's
okay.
kind of facilitated by the VSBA and kind of like how we want to behave as a board. Not really discussing school matters or
Right.
anything like that. It's just,
So
yeah. Okay. I don't know, are there particular days of the week that are easier for people? I know for myself, Friday is a little more flexible, but
How long is the retreat? All day?
probably 8 to 3, 8 to 4, 9 to 4, just kind of depends on the number of topics. And
maybe we can look at our calendars and send Wendy dates that we're not available, and then
that's true, yeah.
and then
Yeah.
she could kind
Block, yeah, send your blackout dates. Dr. Coleman?
I prefer to go ahead, Kitty, go
Ms.
first.
Snyder?
Probably thinking closer to the end of October to give staff time to prepare whatever we would, since we always seem to talk about what we want to talk about and then get back to it, just to give them ample time to be able to create the information.
Well, if we got topics within the next week, I mean,
There's also intercession.
administration works for
Yeah.
us too, so
Intercession is the 19th.
that one missed. So,
I'll let that fly.
yeah, okay.
He said they work for us.
Dr. Coleman?
Yeah, Dr. Nillis is doing a great job of leading us through this piece. I just want to make sure that I establish eye contact with every board member in saying that this is our opportunity to talk about school matters, philosophical dynamics, direction, etc. So we really need to give deep thought into what we want to happen and when it is going to happen, that we'll be in the best mindset and openness to be able to have a real critical discussion, crucial conversations around a lot of things that might be in your heart, spirit, around what we do as the board and what we have to deal with. As far as I'm concerned, this probably, in my personal opinion, will be a defining retreat for the Lynchburg City School Board, and we need to make sure that we understand its value. And sounds like you're directing us towards the end of October. I certainly will make myself available whenever, but I just want to say that to us as a board, things that we may not discuss here is critical, and whatever you got in your heart, you need to bring it up so that we can figure out where it would be best placed to discuss within the scheme of September 22nd, which is a different matter, and the actual retreat itself.
Okay, Dr. Brennan?
Just a practical point of view, since we have the 22nd as a full day, could I ask that we do this at least a month after that, just so that time-wise we kind of can fit our schedule, so end of October we can invest somewhere in there rather than...
Yeah, I mean, end of October, the 20th or the 20th is a week of a board meeting. That's a Friday. The 27th is a Friday. The following week, obviously, no board meeting. There's also, because of how the Tuesdays fall, there's a break, between. I mean, maybe you don't want to spend all this time together. I don't know. Maybe it's personal.
Looking forward to it.
Get a break. Everybody might need to break too. So. Anyway, so maybe kind of look under your calendars for the 27th, if that's.
I already know that I have a conflict.
You already know you have a conflict. Okay, well.
Sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll work from there. So.
We could go into November.
If we need to, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Certainly.
All righty.
Certainly. All right. Thank you. Next is, and this is for information, is the VSBA Policy Services Contract. Dr. Massey?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The Lynchburg City Schools does contract with the Virginia School Board Association for the policy services. It's a contract in the amount of $3,000, and I find it very valuable in our endeavor to keep the policy manual up to date. And ask that you consider that and act upon it at the September 19th meeting.
So that's for this year, along with a guarantee for the next, 4 years?
Yes,
at the
sir.
same,
Yes,
at the
sir.
same rate?
Yes, sir.
So this is for information tonight with action at our next meeting.
So basically, at the next meeting, we're gonna agree to, if we wanna continue for another 4 years?
No,
Just 1 year.
it's 1 year, but there's an agreement that for the next 4 years, we can renew at the same rate.
Okay, I didn't hear that part, gotcha.
And it's placed on the consent agenda.
If people are consenting, yes. And also that if there's an issue at the time of the next meeting, say I want to pull this, or send me an email saying I want to pull it from the consent agenda, I want to have some further discussion, so it doesn't commit us to absolutely, so. Okay, so we'll put this on the consent agenda then for next time. Very good. That brings us to the Lynchburg Juvenile Detention Center Education Program Budget for 2017-18. Dr. Massey, Dr. McLean?
Are you going to handle that?
Mr. Copeland, oh, okay.
Recent changes last week. This is one of those budgets that Lynchburg City Schools serves as the fiscal agent. It's basically a passed down funding from the state so that we can run the juvenile detention center. Ms. Brown's here if you have any specific questions related to it, and I'll defer to Mr. Beckles if there's anything he wants to add.
Okay. Ms. Brown, are you going to give us a little talking to?
Or Ms. Calloway, I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there, Lauren.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Every year the Regional Juvenile Detention Center budget comes before the board. It is flow-through monies from the Department of Education, specifically state-operated programs. The detention center is located off of Florida Avenue, and it holds approximately 48 students throughout the different regions and surrounding counties. It's a regional program. The staff has a full-time principal, full-time administrative secretary, and employs 8 teachers to the program. The students that are Lynchburg City students transition back to Lynchburg City Schools, and we work hand in hand with Mrs. Calloway to make that work. The students that represent the counties, she transitioned them with their local school jurisdictions for them to go back into the schools or either on to adult corrections at that time. The budget is set by state-operated programs, and as Mr. Copeland said before, we just flow the funds through Lynchburg City Schools.
Okay. Board member questions or comments? All right. So this is for information tonight, action at our next meeting. Is there, put this on the consent agenda also? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
It brings us to superintendent's comments.
I only have one comment. We are so saddened by the passing of our dear friend and colleague, Mr. Robert Quayle. Rob served Lynchburg City Schools exceptionally well as principal of Bedford Hills Elementary School, as associate principal of E.C. Glass High School, and supervisor of instructional technology. Also, we regret to inform you that Master Sergeant Richard DePerrier, who was Marine Corps Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps instructor at Heritage High School for 8 years, has passed away. Please join me in a moment of silence in memory of Rob Quayle and Master Sergeant Richard DuPerrier, and please remember their families in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our condolences to the Quell family. And
I might say the funeral is for Robert Quayle is Thursday at Forest, Virginia. And what was the name of the church? Freedom Baptist Church. Right. So 4:30, and the family will receive friends at 5:30. 5:30 to 7.
okay, are there board?
We need to have a closed session.
Yeah, I was going to have
Okay.
board
I'm sorry.
board comments. Board member comments. Ms. Morrison.
I had the privilege of attending a conference in Richmond in July. It's called Classrooms, Not Courtrooms. And I hope that every board member will have the opportunity with Ms. Brown to attend this. It really changed my way of thinking about things that, as a board member, that we do. They said that if things aren't working, it's not the teachers or principals, it's the board who passed the policy. And they made that very clear, that as board members that we needed to look and understand and take responsibilities. Please, if you have the opportunity next year, take it to go. It was the best day and a half of training that I've had in a long time.
Thank you. Ms. Carter.
Yes, thank you. I had the pleasure of watching the eclipse with Robert's Payne School, and we had 3 media outlets there, thanks to the Tracy Prophet, who was just there and wanted the attention. So that was fun, and also, I think that's it. That's it.
Ms. Snyder.
I also had the privilege of watching the eclipse with the students. I was at Dunbar, though, and it was really fun. I took a bunch of pictures and sent them to Miss Babb, just to see not just the students, but the crossing guard had the glasses on, the bus drivers were all lined up, and they had stepped out of the bus to watch it. So it was just really cool to have, it was just everybody. It wasn't just the students and just the teachers. It was a really fun experience. Thanks to Genworth and the Ed Foundation for that.
Dr. Coleman.
Yeah, I was glad to be over at Sheffield. Miss Lee, Dr. McLean was there during that time on the eclipse day. And again, that was really good. Been trying to get around to every building. I appreciate the elementary schools, what they're doing, trying to get to every one of those and bumping into people. And there's so many other things, but I just want to end by saying, if anybody needs somebody who can really give a compelling story about how to take advantage of opportunities. Today, school board member Polly spoke at our opening convocation at Virginia University of Lynchburg and did an extraordinary job. Amongst us, we have so much that we can do to make a difference, and it's just so good to see all of us being as active as we are in trying to figure out how we can be those good policy makers so that we can become what we need to be.
Thank you. A few informational items. School board work session follows this meeting, actually. And then after that, there will be a closed meeting. The next board meeting is Tuesday, September 19th, 5:30 here in the boardroom in the school at admin building. And school board training, which we mentioned previously, is Friday, September 22nd, up at the VSBA in Charlottesville. Okay, and with that, the business meeting is adjourned. Thank you.